As you guys know, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition was released back in 2021, and it was a compilation of the Milky Way Trilogy games. The graphics and certain features have been improved, and other features were left out, and others are technically gone forever. But one would say that the collection is a definitive way to play the games in 2024. The game that I believe benefited the most from being remastered is Mass Effect 1. For anyone who's played the entire trilogy, you know that Mass Effect 1 feels a little different than the latter two, and because of that, it's usually the one that gets played the least. However, BioWare made improvements to Mass Effect 1 to give it the feel of its younger siblings. But this got me thinking, how well does OG Mass Effect 1 hold up today compared to what we have now? Is it still worth playing? Those are the questions that I'm answering for this video. It's been almost 17 years since the original came out. This should be interesting. Now I am going to reference the Legendary Edition at certain points, just to show the changes between the two versions. In Mass Effect 1, we take on the role of Commander Shepard, and our goal is to stop Saren Arterius and his army of minions from bringing back the Reapers, a race of machine constructs that return every 50,000 years to reduce the numbers of the galaxy. But stopping Saren is not going to be easy. You see, Saren is a Spectre, agents that answer to the Citadel Council. They represent the authority of Citadel space within the Milky Way galaxy. Spectres have the ability to do just about anything in order to complete their missions, and most of the time the Council will just turn a blind eye to it. That and the fact that they work alone makes them hard to track down. To hunt down Saren without causing a conflict with the lawless outer systems, Shepard is sworn into the Spectres. This is a big deal as they are the first human to be given the honor. After being convicted of treason for going rogue against the Council, Saren disappears. Seriously, we don't see him again until around the final third of the story. From here, it's about going to the different worlds, the Citadel, and ships in space, and either collecting MacGuffins or dealing with the problems that reside on them. You can complete just the major missions, however, you're going to be leaving a lot of experience points on the table. Mass Effect 1 is all about the side quest, as there are only a few main missions to do. But from a story perspective, I love how Mass Effect 1 handles things. And I think that's because it sets up the lore of the Mass Effect series well. We learn a lot about the main characters, there's the different races, the enemies, and even the side characters can be compelling. You feel immersed and invested in the character known as Shepard. You could be Paragon till death, a violent asshole, or somewhere in between. The reveal that Saren's ship Sovereign is an actual Reaper will stick with you. And it made things even more tense as you realize that Saren's not the one in control here. He's being controlled by Sovereign, and almost everyone near them too is either being controlled or indoctrinated in some way. In that final battle where Saren is transformed into a Turian husk, even after offing himself, by the way, that was crazy. But as a whole, Mass Effect 1 is about getting you out there and exploring the worlds within the galaxy. And to assist with that, they give you the M35 Mako. The Mako. This thing sucks, but it's not all of its fault. The way some of Mass Effect's terrain works deserves some of the blame too. It's a chore exploring the more mountainous planets, as some of the terrain is very jagged, which doesn't jive with the Mako's more bouncy mechanics. It's easy to get knocked off course when scaling to higher elevations on some planets, but I believe that could be chalked up to the hardware limitations of the time. It also doesn't have the most flexible aim. You have to treat it like a tank when dealing with closer enemies. A very loose tank, because you won't be able to get to them. You'll feel this a lot when trying to shoot bunkered down Geth or mercenaries. The lack of a boost button makes these planets feel huge. Most of these planets consist of flat plains where Thresher Maw might be waiting, minerals and MacGuffins to be collected, mountains, and whatever mission is on that planet. Without a way to speed up exploration, you're going to be meandering wherever you need to go. But now that I've presented some of the negatives around the Mako, let's talk positives. It's annoying, but you can get to where you need to go, it just takes some planning. And the boost jump helps dealing with enemies with rockets. If you get out of the Mako and kill the enemies instead, you get double the XP. This was changed in the Legendary Edition so that the penalty for using the Mako no longer exists. Legendary Edition was the best thing that happened to the Mako because they added the boost function. Thank you for that. The shields regenerate faster, and the physics were changed to make it feel heavier. Although I feel like the Thresher Maws are harder to fight now. Am I the only one that feels like this? I feel like the gameplay should be discussed, as this is one of the bigger changes between the original and the Legendary Edition. The gameplay in the original hasn't aged as well. especially if you played it on the console like I did. One of the funniest and scariest things about the combat is that you can run 100 miles per hour towards things while in combat. But this is a double-edged sword, as your opponents can do the same, and it sucks having a Geth Destroyer or a Krogan coming at you at light speed, and the biotics, well, that's a whole other problem. The biotic attacks will make you ragdoll to the floor, and it takes forever for you to get up. But rampaging enemies aside, it's hilarious speeding towards enemies and attempting to hit them, but hitting enemies in the original is a chore. I'm talking from a console perspective here, but this was a pain on Pharos because there is no definitive melee button, so you have to run up to enemies and wish for the best. The problem with this is that the colonists have guns, and if you miss your swings or your swings don't register, you'll be eating a lot of rounds and have to run away. I'm glad the Legendary Edition added a melee button because this used to be annoying. Combat in general was different in this game compared to, let's say, Mass Effect 2. You can actually be out in the open and shoot, compared to 2, where even LOFI mechs can send you to the Spectre Graveyard if you're not careful. I do like Mass Effect 1's combat in this aspect over Mass Effect 2. However, I can't say that it's overall better because Mass Effect 2's combat is much more polished. In the original game, getting into cover is automatic, so you have to get up close to the wall and hope your Shepard gets into cover. It takes a minute to get used to. I wonder why this wasn't made to have its own button or key. But perhaps the most annoying thing if you're going from Mass Effect 1 Legendary to the original are the damn grenades. You see, if you're playing on a controller, you press the select button to throw grenades. And one of the things I had to adapt to when playing Legendary is having the grenade button be X or square. I can't tell you how many times I pressed X and accidentally launched a grenade. The cool thing about Mass Effect 1 is that you can choose when you want to detonate the grenades, which can help turn an accidental throw into a useful one. This is something that would have been cool to have in later games. That's not even including the guns. In this game, you have weapon skill levels, so the more points you put towards a weapon, the better your Shepard will be able to use it. As far as the weapons, the one that changed the most was a sniper. In the original game, the sniper rifle has a lot of sway when zoomed in, and this could make aiming difficult, especially if your sniper skills were low. And if your skill points were high enough, or you don't have the right class to use that weapon, you couldn't even zoom in with it. Pistols were the only weapon that all classes could zoom in with, so you had to make sure you balanced your weapons and abilities well. Mass Effect 1 has two styles of hacking minigames. For consoles, it was a Simon Says minigame, where a button would be highlighted on the screen, you have to quickly choose the right button. Pick wrong and you fail the game. For the PC and Legendary Edition, you have a set of rotating rings, and you have to navigate an arrow through the opening in the rings in a certain amount of time. In the original, if you failed to solve the minigame on the first try, it usually removed the manual override button, and you'll have to pay with Omnigel instead. This was changed in the Legendary Edition to where you can try the manual override as many times as you like, which decreased some of the value of Omnigel in the game, but there were places where Omnigel could be useful. I'm looking at you, Pete 13. I may be in a minority on this, but I preferred the console way of hacking. I didn't really care to hack things in the game that much anyway, so just being able to press buttons and move on, I didn't mind that at all. One thing from the original game that had to be left out of the Legendary Edition is the Pinnacle Station DLC. Pinnacle Station is one big battle simulator where you can earn a weapon that may be ranked higher than any weapon you may have at that point, and an apartment on a nearby planet if you beat every challenger there. The last challenge given to you by the commander of the place, General Ahern, is one of the hardest missions in the game, probably in the whole series. It's so hard that playing on lower difficulties is challenging. But overall, this DLC is meh, and most people will go to this place once, beat it, and will probably skip it on their next playthrough because it's just not that interesting, and it's self-contained. It doesn't affect the story whatsoever. Now, the reason it was left out is because the original source code for it became corrupted, so that data was just gone for good, and it would have taken BioWare months to recreate it, so they just cut it out completely. Now, for curiosity's sake, you can add it back using mods, and if I can remember, it played pretty well. I'll put a link to it in the description. I don't have much to say about the graphics, but this game looks amazing for 2007. The scene where Sovereign takes off looks great, and shoot, Eden Prime still is beautiful today. Mass Effect 1 was known for having screen tearing issues, so you'll end up with some weird jumps or stuttering during gameplay. This happens even on console, like here. It's not the worst thing, you tend to get used to it after a while, Going back to the original Mass Effect 1 was interesting. It plays a little differently than the Legendary Edition, and that can take some adjustment period if you haven't played it before, but I wouldn't say that's a deal breaker, nowhere close. To me as a game, it still holds up well. However, it's not the version I would go back to, as the Legendary Edition improves on a lot of the more archaic aspects of the original. The original game will give you access to Pinnacle Station, so if you get it on console, that's how you can experience it. If you think it's worth it, I'll leave it to you. However, if you're on PC, you can just mod it into the game. If you want to see how the original game feels, then it's worth a look. But that might be more out of curiosity than anything. Thank you for watching, guys. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
DJ Sonic 3.